So you'll have seen this already, but I decided to treat myself this month and buy myself 2 volumes of Jujutsu Kaisen, Volume 9 and Volume 0, which are my favorite volumes or my favorite parts of one of my absolute most favorite animes of all time, Jujutsu Kaisen. This is quite strange, probably, because I've never talked about it before, but that anime means the world to me. I discovered it about exactly a year ago, actually. I discovered it in August of 2024. And ever since then, like, I'm the kind of person, if I like something, I'll rewatch it constantly. And I've seen it probably like 3 times or so. And actually, in July, I went to see that one movie that came out recently that they put on in cinemas for like one singular day. And I managed to get tickets and see that. And I loved that experience so much. And just because that anime means so much to me, and because the month of July in general was just a very special month for me. I've talked about this already in the last vlog I did, but I wanted something to commemorate that, and I thought, what better thing than to buy these are basically trophy books. It's kind of the reason I haven't done it yet, because basically ever since I discovered this anime, these are things I've wanted to buy, but I have not. Because to be very honest, I'm in trouble now. Because the thing I feared would happen has happened, which is that now I just want to collect manga all of a sudden, which is something I have purposefully not done before because I just know financially, spatially, it's not a good idea for me to start getting into that as well, because I just love anime and there's so many I would love to collect. Death Note, my first ever anime. I love it so much. And It's also one that I would really like to own physically. I really don't want to start with that because really I do not have the space, neither do I have the money to now get into manga collecting as well. But Jujutsu Kaisen is the exception to the rule because again, it makes me so happy. These two volumes specifically make me so happy. And just the thought of having these, first of all, I haven't read them yet, but I would really love to compare what I know from the anime versus what's in the manga because I know things get changed. That's just what happens with adaptations. And to be able to anytime just pick this up and flip through my favorite parts of this favorite story of mine, it's just so cool. And the funny thing is, honestly, this is how you know how much I project into this thing. Because my brother watched it recently and he liked it, but he was so confused how emotionally invested I am in that story. Because I think, honestly, the reason these two are specifically my favorites is just Jujutsu Kaisen triggers my utmost fear, my fear of abandonment. It hits hard because of that. And I think that's a very personal thing. I think that's why it's the kind of anime that I just cannot watch without crying at least once or twice during it, especially this storyline, if you know what the storyline is. I love it. I needed it. I bought it. I'm so happy I did. I was kind of scared I'd regret it, but oh no, I am not. And the thing is, well, this is not news, but nothing will ever come close to Heaven Official's Blessing. That is my favorite story, my favorite fictional piece of art, piece of just creation that I have ever witnessed, that I will ever witness. I will never stop loving and preaching about that story. And I'm currently still in the middle of collecting the hardcovers, the special editions that have been coming out of that. The last one will come out in January, so I'm so excited. At that point, I'll then have all of them. Part of me would really like to create a shelf on my trophy bookshelf right now where I can display Heaven Official's Blessing and Jujutsu Kaisen. Because Jujutsu Kaisen, although it's very different and it doesn't mean nearly as much to me as Heaven Official's Blessing does, it is one of the main comfort things, pieces of media for me, and it is very special to me. It holds a special place in my heart. And so I would kind of like to display them together, although they don't really fit, but to me they fit, and that's really the most important part. They are my bookshelves after all. I'd have to do some reorganization. And honestly, that's kind of cool because I love doing that, so this functions as the perfect excuse. So I think we'll just get right on to that. So that didn't go very well. I had to put it right back. It did not look good at all, in my opinion. I think the way my bookshelves were before and are again now is just the best way for them to be. It just makes the most sense as they are. Which means the dream of having a special shelf of my special books is not gonna come to fruition as of yet. Maybe in the future sometime. Yeah. But thanks anyway for watching. It was a nice try. You never know. I had to try, so now I know it doesn't work. Otherwise, I would have obsessed over it, and that would not have been nice. Good try, but not very successful. So, as you might have seen, I have been reading The Well of Loneliness by Radcliffe Hall. It's one of the first books I'm reading this month, and I have wanted to read it for quite some time. I stumbled upon this. I had never heard of it until Bella from Throne of Pages read this a few months ago now. And I found that so interesting. I think there's a lot more gay classics than there are lesbian classics out there. And so I really wanted to read this one. At least maybe I'm wrong in making that statement. It's just something I haven't read a lot of and that I would really like to vary my education on a bit more. This is one of the very first of its kind. And so I really, really wanted to read this one. It's a very, very sad book though, sadly. I would love to be able to give you more background information, but I haven't read the foreword yet because with classics, you should never, just a pro tip, never ever read the foreword before you've actually read the story, because most classics, the foreword spoils everything. It's the most difficult and the most obnoxious thing when you're trying to learn about the context of a story and then you're suddenly being spoiled for what's gonna happen in it. That I'm pretty sure I heard somewhere that is the case here. So I I just didn't do it. So I don't have as much information about it as I would like to. I just know it was published, and then because of its contents, it was banned for a long time. I think it was only unbanned in the 60s or the 70s, and it was originally published in the 20s. That in itself is a crime against humanity, in my opinion. Banning books is just... Don't get me started on that whole concept. But The Well of Loneliness is apparently a very autobiographical work. And just from, I'm currently on page 246 here. This is how far I'm into it. And it seems to be incredibly personal. It reads like such a personal story. Also, because I love art, so why not talk about this for a second? This is a portrait of the actual author. I'm almost certain, because look at this. This is the author portrait. Can you see? Is it focusing? Now it's focusing. I'm almost certain that's her. And that is so cool. I love that cover so much. And it's just, the entire book is basically a portrait of her. At least it seems that way thus far. So far, I've only really read about her childhood, and now she's becoming an adult. I am enjoying it so much, even though enjoying it is kind of a tough thing to say about a story of this nature, because it is full of shame and repression and so much mistreatment, abuse, psychological abuse, so much homophobia, both internalized, but internalized because of the surroundings. It makes you so sad, and so feel so helpless for this. At the beginning of the story, just this really young girl who just wants to be herself but can't really be, and who's so confused, and who is just, none of the adults in her life are being adults and are doing their job, and it's society really failed her, and just people of her community, people like her. It's kind of difficult because, of course, this is a work of its time in many ways. A lot of the concepts here, a lot of the ways it's written are quite honestly products of their time. So it's difficult to see it from modern standpoints, but from some of the things that have been said, and from some of the things that Stephen herself keeps thinking and feeling, it seems kind of like Stephen might just be transgender, which again is complicated by the fact of her having been raised in the sort of role of a boy, of her parents having wanted her to be a boy. And so it's quite difficult to say this. Is it nature? Is it nurture? Was she born this way? Was she made this way? It's, I think, why this book is also quite controversial. It's a really difficult thing to say, and I'm just not far enough into it to actually make a statement there. It's just something I've been noticing more and more as the story goes on. That is quite interesting. One thing I'm really liking that is happening more and more is, as Stephen grows up, her life is becoming a bit more expansive. She is meeting new people. My favorite characters so far have been Puddle, who is her governess. I don't know if she would actually be considered a governess or if she's more like just a private teacher, but Puddle, my God, my heart belongs to Puddle. She is so cool. Everyone, specifically people like Stephen, who don't have anybody in their lives they can talk to and they can trust, and who actually love and care for them. Everyone needs a Puddle. Just get yourself a Puddle. Also the name, I love the name so much. I love her so much. She was my first love in this story. I love her. And there's also this character called Mr. Brockett. He is so cool. He is such a character. He's the first exposure of Stephen to a very specific kind of society, and it's not been mentioned yet, but I'm pretty sure the guy's gay. And he is such a character. He is so refreshing in this entire book of repression and of shame. Just a person who is being himself, who is so kind. And the thing with Stephen is she's built so many walls that she doesn't really appreciate that for the preciousness that it is. But I think there's hope. I think there's hope here. At least it's the first time I feel like there could be hope here in this entire story of just so much human cruelty and unkindness. Mr. Brockett is such a light, and I think everyone needs a friend like Mr. Brockett. He's such a cool character, and he's not afraid to say the tough things, to criticize her, and he has Stephen's best in mind, and that is so cool. Brockett and Puddle, those two are just my absolute favorites in this story so far. I love them so much. I find them so refreshing. I love what they're doing for Stephen and for the story, and just for me as a reader. I really enjoy that. I'm so grateful to them, and I cannot wait to see what keeps going on here. I'm so excited. So yeah, that is thus far my opinion on The Well of Loneliness. I won't go any more in depth than I have gone now, I think, into what this book is, because soon you're going to see my wrap up, which is where this is going to be in, and then I'll just have to repeat myself over and over again. So yeah, that is probably as deep as I'm going to get into the subject matter of this story. But I will still probably give you some more updates, because I'm planning to finish this in a few days. I hope, at least. So if that is the case, I can still give you some little tiny thoughts here and there. We'll see. We'll see where this week takes us. That is all so far. Thanks for listening. Now we're gonna get back into it. Bye. Okay, update time, and I'm just gonna warn you right now, I am in a very chatty mood, so this is probably gonna be a bit long. I hope that's fine. Maybe get a tea or get a coffee or some other beverage or just brace yourselves. First of all, the thing that I really want to talk about is I finished The Well of Loneliness. Here, now you can see it better, by Radcliffe Hall. I told you I was reading that. I showed you I was reading that. And I have finished it again. The thing with this book is, my goodness, It is so sad. It made me feel so just hopeless. The last time I talked to you, I was in this sort of state where things were starting to look up a bit for Stephen and just the story in general. And I was so scared that it was gonna take a turn for the worse again. And well, no spoilers or anything, but it did. It did get worse. It got so much worse. And it made me so sad, which is just very unfortunate. And I don't even know where to start with this story. And honestly, I do think I have to let this sink in a bit longer and just think about it more because there's so much you could say about it. My very first thought when I finished it was, why? Why in the world would you end your story like that? But, and there was one specific thing, a treatment of a female character, basically the love interest in this story towards the end. I was really unhappy about it because I thought it took so much autonomy from her. She was kind of treated like a child, but I now see where that came from. And one of the things that I found the most heartbreaking here, which is so terrible to say because the entire thing is just heartbreaking, and it's made so much more heartbreaking by just the knowledge that this must have happened so many times. And again, that it is very much still a current issue. But of course, back then it was even worse, if you can even say something like that. I don't agree with the idea of placing trauma or sadness in a hierarchy. I don't think such a thing should exist. But if I had to pick the thing that's been sticking with me the most, at least at this current moment, it's this whole motif of the mere fact that you as a woman love another woman basically feels selfish here, or that is how it's portrayed here. And it is done so well because you can feel every single thought process this character goes through. This horrible fact that because of the way society is, you feel like the fact that you are in love with someone puts them at a disadvantage, or basically feels selfish because it makes their lives so much more difficult. The tragedy of that, the unfairness of that, the knowledge that this must have been the reality for so many people, it's so devastating. And again, it's something that I'm gonna have to think about a bit more in order to properly put my thoughts into words. I think that's quite difficult in this case because this is one of those books that you really want to do justice, but it's also one of those books that I will never have the life experience of this author, of this woman. And so I don't feel like I am qualified or like I have the right to really interpret into this. I feel quite intimidated at the notion of trying to put this book into words because I fear I won't do it justice. I will be working on that mentally some more. One thing that this book has led me to though, and I think that is mainly motivated by the fact that I have for some reason just been reading quite a few queer classics at the moment. And The Well of Loneliness and Maurice specifically are two queer classics set during the same time. The Well of Loneliness spans a bit more of a larger time period, but were set in the turn of the century, in the early 1900s basically. And it is interesting because there's so many parallels in both of those books. Knowing what E.M. Forster wanted to do with Maurice makes it make more sense that Maurice at the end of the day felt like more of a positive story than The Well of Loneliness did. Even though in Maurice as well there was so much oppression and just injustice and so much unacceptance this character was met with, and the difficulty of a position like that, of having a sexuality that was not deemed acceptable or normal and that made you an outcast in society, that is very much depicted in Maurice as well. But the experience of Maurice versus the experience of The Well of Loneliness is entirely different in my opinion, because although both of them deal with this difficult subject matter in a way that made me feel like I could really feel with these people, it's the closest you will probably ever get to actually experiencing a situation like that. But The Well of Loneliness is so much more sad and it's so much more hopeless. And to me, the question of that is it because we're dealing with women here? Is that the case? Is it because there's this added factor of discrimination? Because in both cases, the main character is wealthy. They are from wealthy family backgrounds, which makes both of their lives in a way easier because they have a bit more freedom. But in my opinion, Maurice still has a lot more freedom and independence. And maybe that is why the thing is, you can't really properly go through that thought process because you cannot compare these books. Because again, Ian Forster was trying to create a hopeful story. That goes to show that he was probably trying to create something that he himself was never able to experience and that many men like him probably weren't able to experience. But still, I wonder, I wish I had more reading experience in that subject matter. I'm now really interested in reading Notes from a Crocodile, which is also a lesbian classic. It is, however, from a very different time period. I think we're more in the later 1900s, so that's also going to be a different aspect of history. So yeah, I don't quite know where I'm going with this, to be very honest. It's just, these are both books that have really stuck with me and that I am going to be thinking about a lot more. And I really want to become better at reading more of those kinds of books and just becoming better educated as a person in that subject matter, because I find it interesting. And I think it's one of those things that just, I want to know more about it. And I want to have more words and more qualifications to properly express my thoughts here. And I think the only way to do that is to read more classics of this time, of this subject matter. So that is the first thing. Next thing, on a bit of a different note, I have also started reading Tales and Poems by Edgar Allan Poe. This is again in the stunning Macmillan Collector's Library editions, which are some of my favorite editions ever. The text is quite small, but honestly, I don't really mind that. This is some poems and again, tales, so short stories of Edgar Allan Poe's. I had started reading this last year, but I think I read too many books at the same time at that point, so I put that down somehow. This is kind of the time where it's finally getting cozy, it's finally getting darker. We've been having some rain lately, which is so nice, and I'm feeling all of the spooky season feelings, let me just tell you. And all I want to read currently are gothic classics. That is just, as soon as my spooky season mood comes and hits, that is all I want to read, all I gravitate towards. And this is actually the only gothic classic that I own that I have not read yet. And I need to buy some because I feel that deficit very, very deeply right now. But luckily, I do have this one. And of course, I had to start it. I'm reading it really slowly because I want some gothicness in my life for as long as possible. The short stories are just so cool because some of them are really, really dark and spooky. More in the sense, I'd call that more intellectual horror. Of course, it's not the kind of horror you read nowadays. It's very different. Gothic horror in general is very different. And I think Edgar Allan Poe is just a very unique writer. I don't have anyone to compare him to, honestly. But some of them are also just really funny and not all of them are spooky. It's kind of a really good overview. And it will not be my last Edgar Allan Poe, let me just tell you, because I am enjoying this so much and I love his writing style. It's just so flowery and so perfect and the exact kind of language I love in classics of that time period. So yeah, that is very successful. Also, one thing that doesn't really have anything to do with anything, but I'm still gonna talk about it because I don't know what's been going on with me, but I am suddenly so in the mood to collect things. I mean, every once in a while I just get that. At my heart's core, I am a collector, which is bad for my finances and it is not realistically possible. But the thing I am really actually actively considering is collecting the books from the series The Three Investigators. It's originally from the US. It's this series of children's books and they made CDs out of them, of these three young boys who just solve mysteries. Basically, they're detectives. I think they're much more popular in Germany actually than in the US. At least I have a very specific kind of experience with them just because they have been so prevalent in my life since I was very young, because this is the series I grew up with. I have read every single one of the stories, or listened at least. I used to collect these CDs and the cassette tapes when there still were those. It is the fundamental experience of growing up for me, the nostalgic series. And to this day, whenever I'm sick or whenever I feel very sad or just cozy, and especially now that it's getting a bit more gloomy and towards the cozy season, those stories are all I want to read and consume. And I've been listening to so many of them because the audiobooks, the German versions at least, are on Spotify to listen to for free. And that is all I've been doing. I don't know. I really want the books. I want the books so bad. even though I don't know if I'll realistically actually read them in German, but I think that is one of the only cases of a German book I would actually enjoy reading. There's so many memories connected to them, so that is the thought process currently in my mind. We will see. I will update you. Wish my wallet luck, because there is at this point over 200 or so, but I would really like to collect the vintage ones because they started doing a different kind of format of them later on. But the first 100 of them, oh my goodness, I would so love to have them. Let me just tell you. Oh my, now I'm rambling. I told you I was in a rambly mood, but I will let you go now and we'll see what goes on now. Okay, this is not a drill. You know how I said, first of all, sorry, I'm gonna be all over the place because I feel so frazzled right now. But you know how I said earlier that I was thinking about maybe buying those books of this young detective series, Die drei Fragezeichen? Well, I decided I needed them. The more I thought about it, the more I needed them. I've been listening to nothing but them. And with my brain, once an idea gets stuck in my head, I obsess over it constantly. And it's all I've been thinking about, and I decided I need that stuff. I need those books immediately. I need them right now, and it would make me so happy. I decided I was gonna look for them, and on eBay there was this listing to bid on. It was not a fixed price. I'm not quite sure how the vocabulary here is properly. It was such a steal. 26 books, the first 26 books of that entire series story thingy. I basically the reason I am in this state, you're seeing me in a very particular state, is because I have just gotten into my first bidding war ever. I'm shaking still. Spoiler alert, I got the books. But at the very last second, I feel like my heart has been constantly racing ever since I started bidding on that auction thingy. I own them. They are officially mine. They are already on the way to me. Well, not technically, but they are going to be here very soon, in a few days actually. And I am so happy, but I still feel like I can't really breathe. This is why I know this was the right thing. I'm sorry if this is of absolutely no interest to you. But again, this is something that means so much to me, so I needed to document it. I needed to document and be able to look back on the exact moment I got those 26 books of this series that means the world to me. All the time I've been thinking about this. The reason I've been the reason I've been hesitant, basically, is because I've been judging myself so much, because that is a problem I have. I judge myself so much for the interests I have. I don't want this to come off as judgy. I don't judge anybody. I'm a very non-judgmental person in general, except when it comes to me. I judge myself constantly, and I have a really hard time justifying my interests to myself and embracing my interests. And I'm very frugal with spending money on myself. I don't buy things on impulse. So something like this, which technically, those are children's books. I know those stories by heart. I know every single plotline, every single character. I know the resolutions of all of them. I kept getting into my head and getting into these spirals. And it comes to a point where I think myself to a point where I have no idea what I actually want and what actually feels right. I was so nervous, but I really, really wanted those books. And now that I own them, this is now when I know that was the right decision, because the amount of joy I am currently feeling, the thought that those books are going to be in my hands soon, and it's just in general, because something I've noticed as we're getting more into the cozy season, as it's getting colder, is I own very little books that I can read just for enjoyment. I think owning those 26 books, I will now be owning 26 opportunities to just treat myself with just a pleasant story, a story that is so fun to be in, that is so filled with nostalgia, that puts me back into the headspace and into the memories of all of the things I loved in my childhood. Long story short, I am so happy. And I will be showing them to you once they arrive. Okay, thank you for listening to this ramble. I'm very sorry. This is probably something that no one cares about. But again, just needed to share. I needed to talk to someone about this. Also, one thing, it has something to do with this, in my head at least, but probably objectively speaking, not very much. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of the kindness you have shown me on my last vlog. That's what I'm talking about. How precious you guys are, and just how, I don't know how lucky I am. I feel so, so lucky. So thank you so much for being so kind to me, for sharing your own stories. That is the most amazing thing because it makes me feel so much less alone. It feels like a huge gift. So thank you so, so much. I am so, so appreciative of you being here and just watching me. And I don't know, let's not get sappy, but I wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I highly appreciate it. Okay, and now I'm gonna go.